Alright guys and girls, so in this YouTube tutorial I'm going to be basically taking you through more basics to add to your knowledge for TinkerCAD and how to use it. Hopefully by the end of this you'll be a little bit more, even more proficient with it, and you'll have a few more tricks up your sleeve, and it'll make you quicker and better at using TinkerCAD altogether. So first and foremost, we're going to be learning about a few different things. I'll go over them just off the cuff right here. We're going to be learning how to group things together, use the work plane tool, copy, paste, undo, redo, align, flip, and delete objects. So I think we'll keep it really short and simple for this first part. We're going to talk about placing objects and deleting them, because sometimes we make mistakes and we want to just erase them and get rid of them, but obviously if you don't know how to do it the correct way, it can be really frustrating. We're going to take a simple box, place it into our work plane wherever we want to place it, or maybe it's too big or it's not exactly the right object we want to have. A few different things we can do. First, we have to make sure we have the object selected. Has to have that kind of bluish outline around it. Select the object. Two different things you can do. You can hit the trash can icon to delete, or you can even click on it and hit the backspace button on your keyboard, and it will delete your object as well. Pretty simple. Alright, next on the list, we're going to learn how to copy and paste something. So it's pretty similar, just like another program, or another program, like maybe even Google Docs, or this keyboard shortcut, or just method is used a lot of other places as well. So copy and paste, there's a keyboard shortcut we can use. So Control C will be copy, and it stores your basically the overall shape or whatever you have copied in a temporary place in the computer. That way we can use it later. Or instead of using the keyboard shortcut, we can also have the object that we want to duplicate or copy highlighted. Click on this copy button up here, and you can kind of see it says copy, and then the keyboard shortcut is in parentheses. And once we want to paste it or place it in some specific place, we click on either the paste button up here, which will obviously paste out that object, or we can hit Control V on our keyboard, and it will paste and place our object right where, or duplicate on the same object and make it into another one. Just like that. So this becomes really useful when you create one specific object, like maybe for your project you might be creating one specific part and you want an identical duplicate part. Instead of going through and creating everything from scratch, all you'll need to do is basically create that one side. Let's say it's like a leg for something. You create the one leg, make it perfect. You copy and paste that entire leg, and it will basically be identical. And you don't have to worry about anything being close or maybe not close enough. Or it just makes things a whole lot easier. It makes you more proficient. Alright, now let's say you make a mistake on something. You maybe place something on top of another thing, or you rotate it and it's not in the right position, and it's really difficult to try and place that exactly where you want it to be placed last. You can do a keyboard shortcut or undo or redo. So up here, these two little arrows here are for undo and redo. If we do one specific action or one thing, or maybe multiple things at once or at a given time, we can undo something like one step at a time. So we rotated our object, so if we click back one step, it puts it back and gets rid of the rotation. If we click it again, and remember we initially rose this up, or I guess we moved it, it will go back one step at a time. You can also do the exact opposite and redo it, which would basically be click on this and it puts it back in that same position, or it does exactly what you had in mind of doing. Keyboard shortcuts for them would be Control Z for undo and Control Y for redo. And just keeping those in mind makes you really proficient and really quick at using TinkerCAD, like I said. Alright, now let's make things a little bit interesting here. So we talked about copy, paste, undo, redo. Let's talk about aligning something. So first how about this? We're going to talk about the work plane tool. I think that's more important for our uses right now. So the work plane tool is both over here, and if you just click the W key by itself on the keyboard, not Control W, or else that'll shut down your entire screen. Hit the W key, scroll over top of an object, there's kind of like this little box with a cone that shows up. That's our work plane tool. Basically what it means is right down here we have our work plane like we talked about earlier. Remember, this is our workspace or a workstation. If we bring up the work plane tool, click on the top or side of an object, it takes our entire workplace or work plane, and now it creates it so it's vertical. Or maybe even we want to put it on the side, other side. Whatever direction or whatever place we place our work plane on is where we will be working. It just makes things a lot easier when you're trying to place something. Because watch what happens. We're going to put our work plane back where it was, back down here at the very bottom. We want to try and put a roof on the top. Our project, let's just say, really quick for example, it's going to be a dog box or a house. We don't put this roof right on top. If you try to place it on top right now, it goes inside. We could raise it up, yes, just like that, but when we raise it up, we also run into a small problem where there might be a small little gap in that area. To steer clear of that and kind of to cheat the system and make it quicker, use the work plane tool. Click on the work plane tool over here, or hold down or click the button that says W on your keyboard. Now if we try to take that same roof, place it on top, notice it goes right on top. Just like that. If we look at it from the side, there it is. You can see kind of this orange spot is our work plane. We were able to place the roof right on top, just like so. Really cool, right? We can also do it for the side of an object. So if we want to place the roof on the side of an object, I'm not even sure why you want to do that, but who knows. Or it could even be like letters or symbols. You can do the same exact thing, just like that. Pretty cool, right? Now, one thing you may run into trouble with is trying to align something and get it exactly how you want it. But before I talk about aligning, to reset your work plane tool, let's say it's on this side, you want to go back on the bottom again. You click on the W, click on the bottom, and it resets itself. It goes down to the bottom again. Then anyways, back on track. We want to line something and line something up so it's perfectly straight. I'm going to over-exaggerate this, but let's say we want to put the roof on the top of our house. Right now, that's really offset. It's not even close. We could try to use our arrow keys, yes. That would work. We could use the mouse. Those are both great resources, but to make things quick and easy, there's one specific tool called the line tool. So if we highlight both of our objects, and we need two objects highlighted, we cannot do it with just one. If we click on one object and try to go to the line tool, which is right here, align, it doesn't work because we need more than one object selected. In order to select more than one object, click and hold, drag a box around both the objects you want to be selected. Now that pops up and basically turns more of a solid color and it's not grayed out and we can align things. Click on your align tool. A few different things pop up here. We can align this thing top to bottom. If you hover over top one of the dots, it'll kind of show you exactly where your alignment will be. We don't exactly want to line it top to bottom. We can line it to the side, in the center, or the other side. You can do that with the front, the back, and up and down as well. Right now we want it to be aligned center for center on both sides. So we'll click on the center one way and it moves everything together. So if you look, it's pretty straight. Same thing for back to front. So right now we have a perfectly aligned object. And in order to get out of that, all you do is click on the outside and it disappears. So right now our objects are perfectly straight and aligned, just like that. And that can go for any object. Like maybe we want to put a cylinder on the side of this thing. Let's place the cylinder just in some random spot. Let's put our work plane back down. Select both of your objects. And remember, whatever you're selecting will align. So if we selected the roof, it would try to align the roof as well. Click the line tool. We can align it left to right by clicking on it just like that. Oops, looks like it went inside. Let's undo it. Looks like that's not working out so well for me. I'm just going to delete that. Anyways, so that's the basics of the align tool, and it makes things a lot easier when you're trying to place something and put it in one specific spot. Let me just undo and get back to where we were. Alright, next on this list, we're going to be talking about flipping an object. So right now, we have an object that's basically right in place, but maybe we want to put like a cylinder or something, or maybe a pyramid or some object on the side of it, or flip it so it's maybe facing an opposite direction. You click on that object. Right here we have this thing. It kind of looks like two right triangles with an arrow going through the center. That's your flip tool. Click on that. All these arrows pop up. It's not as noticeable with some objects if you try to flip it one way or the other, but especially if you click on something like this, it will flip it top to bottom. And you can do that with any object for the most part. So if we want to drag like a roof in here, try to flip the roof, it does the same exact thing. Left or right doesn't really do much of anything, but top to bottom, does. Just like that. Alright, now, last few things I want to touch base on. These are very important, and these are really important to know. Would be grouping things together. So as it stands, you can stack objects together, but when you go to move them, you'll notice, oh shoot, that object stayed in place. This one was the only one that moved. In order to prevent that, we can group things together. In order to group things together, select more than one object. Up at the very top here, we have two icons that we're going to be focusing on, our group and our ungroup. The group is selected. You can see it kind of looks like, eventually at one time it was a square and a circle, but it's formed together, and there's a small little open spot right here. Click on that. Both of your objects basically become one solid piece, just like that. And maybe you wanted your roof to stay the same color. You can go back and click on multicolor, and it will go back to its original form. But that's just all personal preference. Now if we try to move our thing around, it stays in place, just like that. Perfect. Now if we made a mistake, or maybe want to ungroup something and change it, click on your object, click on the ungroup button, and it will ungroup your one piece of object into multiple, whatever you had, just like that. The group button also comes into play when you're trying to create custom shapes. So within TinkerCAD, you can't exactly make something from scratch. You have to think in your mind how exactly you would go about cutting away pieces or parts of this, or maybe even putting holes in it. So in order to do that, there's one specific process, and this is pretty standard across the board for any grouping or any custom shape making or making holes. So we have our first object. We have our cube, just like that right there. Now maybe you want to put a hole in the center of that cube. We have to think about, okay, what size hole or what shape of a hole do we want to use? Maybe another box for a square hole, or just a regular hole like a cylinder. Click on that object, bring it in. Make sure your second object is taller. This is really important. Place it in the center, wherever you may want it to be. And I think for me, I want to make this a little bit smaller, so it makes a little bit more sense. It's important when you look at it from a side view that everything is raised up above like that, and it's taller than your original object. Now would be a good point or a good time to align everything together. So we're going to click our Align tool. Line this together left and right, back and forth. That way we know our hole is perfectly centered. Click on our object that we want to become a hole. Change from a solid to a hole. And we're not quite done yet. I mean, you can still see some gray area. It looks like we created a hole, but we didn't. We have to use our grouping process. Select both of your objects, hit the group button, and after a few seconds, if you did it correctly, it'll punch a hole through the other side, just like that. And so you can create holes in objects, or you can create custom objects as well doing the same process. Like if we want to maybe use half of a pyramid, we could cut away the other half using maybe a larger shape. So I'm going to be using a big cube as basically my cutaway shape. Put that in exactly what place we want to place it, like so. Whatever's covered in this gray area will eventually go away and disappear when we group it together. Highlight both areas, hit the group button, and after a few seconds, boom, it chops away or gets rid of whatever we had left there. And right there's your custom shape. You can also do that for the other pieces as well. If you want to maybe cut away the top of this thing so it doesn't have a point at the top, we can do the same exact thing. Whatever it's covering, like I said, will disappear. Whatever's in that gray area. Hit group. Just like that, it disappears. There's our custom shape. Pretty simple, pretty easy, but it can be tricky if you don't know exactly how to do it the right way. So hopefully by this demonstration, you were able to learn a little bit more about how to use TinkerCAD. And you're more proficient at the uses, and you're a little bit quicker with your keyboard actions, and you're building upon that knowledge that we talked about earlier. Okay?